No, but I can shoot you the website if you want to blow it up.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. We have a quorum, and to begin, my name is Eddie Robertson. I'm chairman of the Capital Projects Committee for the city of Hendersonville, and today we are here. The meeting has been duly noticed, and we have a quorum. I'd like to have my colleagues introduce themselves, starting with Chairman Peterson.
Thank you, Chairman. Lee Peterson, Alderman from Ward 2.
My name is Mark Skidmore, and I'm the Chairman of Public Works, Alderman from Ward 1.
Karen Dixon, Alderman Ward 4. Terry Goodwin, Alderman Ward 4.
Okay, and you have an agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda that you have? I have one that I would like to add at the very end of the agenda. I would like to discuss the possibility of coming up with a process to look at long-term projects that we may submit to the GNRC. So this is a very, very long-term, but we don't have a process in place, and I'd like just to discuss that. We'll take no action on it today, but I'd just like to get your input on coming up with a long-term or a plan for more long-term projects in each of our wards. So with that, do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
So moved. Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And with that, I want to thank the staff and Mrs. Locke especially and her staff for preparing this information for us today. They've worked hard for it. And the whole city's anxious to hear the progress that we're making on these projects. So without further ado, and we do have the mayor with us today, Mayor Clary. Thank you for being here. And we also have several aldermen in the audience here as well. So with that, Mrs. Locke, would you proceed with the agenda?
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to have some slides tonight. So we have the agenda, which you have before you. We'll start with Exit 8. This project, the contract with TDOT was executed in April of 2016. So for our projects tonight, we'll be evaluating those initiation dates based on the contract dates. The original estimate for this project at that time was $5 million. The current estimate, including engineering, is approximately $29.5 million, 29.5. There are currently no cost overruns except for what we see with inflation and just the refinement of the scope. The project lead on this is myself, Sarah Locke. Current status, we are in right-of-way, which means we're in the phase where we would begin acquiring property to construct the project. We have not purchased any to date based on our last meeting, but we are making progress on some of the other items with CSX in the background. The jurisdiction of the project, this is a city-managed project, but it is federally funded, state funded at a 50-50 cost share, up to $2 million. The estimated bid letting for this pending funding would be 2025. The estimated groundbreaking would also be 2025, and the estimated completion would be 2028. The action needed on this project tonight would be whether to progress or to pause, as was the direction from our last meeting.
Thank you. That's a nice, concise way to look at the genesis and the revelation of the project. So either you or the mayor, would you like to comment on our efforts to receive additional funding? And also you had some discussions with CSX, I believe, as well. So could you bring us up to date on those two matters?
You gonna do the CSX first, and then okay.
Sure. So we have had some conversations looking at ways to try and reduce cost for this project. There hasn't been a whole lot that has come from that, except for the increased communication and coordination with CSX, which is of great benefit. I think we're getting more movement on our plan reviews and comments back from them, which is very beneficial. They did have one recommendation to evaluate for cost savings, so we are in the early stages of looking at that, and that recommendation was, instead of doing a temporary spur track and then building the bridge and then relocating back to the original location with the additional capacity, they had a recommendation just to move the entire track out to where the spur would be. And then you could, just build the whole thing at once. And they thought that would be potentially a cost savings because of the time for construction. And so the design team is in the process of evaluating whether there would be cost savings appropriate to the redesign necessary for that effort. So,
Questions on the CSX discussions? So does staff believe that it'll save us money? Do you concur with CSX?
I'm not sure. I asked a few different times in our discussions with CSX what magnitude of cost savings they anticipated, because they have more experience with that than our staff does, and even the design consultants really. And they were not able to provide a clear answer on the magnitude, whether it would be thousands or millions or what we might be looking at. So we're having to go through the process of doing a preliminary design essentially, and with estimates so that we can compare the two. Not a full preliminary design, but a conceptual design.
And how much extra will that additional design expense be?
That is something I am waiting to hear back on from the consultants. They're having to bring in one of their design teams from Florida to consult on that, and so I'm waiting for that cost impact.
From Florida?
That's right.
Oh, my goodness.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
One of the things that Sarah's not saying, and I appreciate her not bringing this up, is that we've got to weigh the cost savings versus what the cost and the delays. If there's, and she's asked them multiple times, tell us what these ideas, what they're really going to be cost savings. Honestly, if it's less than $500,000, it doesn't make sense, because then we'd have to go back and redesign, and we'd have further delays on the project, which then are going to increase the cost. And I just throw out $500,000, because that's the money I have in my mind. That's sort of the threshold I have in my mind. Because if they continue to throw out ideas that will save us a little bit of money, and it doesn't add up to anything, it doesn't make sense to make those changes.
So what will be the decision? Is it $500,000 or I mean, what's the legislative process of, does staff have the authority, or the executive branch have the authority to move forward on that, or will it have to go back to finance and?
We'd come back here.
Okay.
But right now, we can't even get an answer of how much their ideas will save.
Okay.
We're having a hard time with that. Am I right about that, Sarah?
Yes,
Okay.
that's right. And actually, another thing is they still haven't even approved the alignment of that. So that's something else that we're working through in the background as well. And then, of course, whether it's before or after, TDOT would also have to approve of the revision if it's even viable.
So the $30 million is still probably a pretty good number.
I think so.
Questions on that so far before we hear from the mayor? I will say this, that because I've been involved in some of the discussions, the mayor has worked very hard to try to find grants for this project, because it is so expensive and it is a city-funded and city-administrated project. So, Mayor, I appreciate your efforts. Give us some good news.
Okay. So the county budget chairman, Matt Schoaf, he has a proposal to go in front of the budget committee later this week that, if passed, could probably generate in the neighborhood of $3 to $4 million for this project from the county over the next 3 years. That would have to be an amendment to the budget, and it's going to require 13 votes to be approved. I've asked Matt if he thinks it's worthwhile for us to call our county commissioners, and he said probably, but he wants to he wants to sort of take their temperature first. So I'll update you on that, but that budget committee meeting is, I want to say, okay, yeah. Also, a meeting with TDOT 6 weeks ago or so, they feel like they can contribute $2 million, similar to what they've already done, since this project has changed scope a little bit, because they contributed $2 million toward design, wasn't it? Okay. And since the design has continued to cost us more money, they feel like they can do that, as well as the possibility there might be $2 million more toward the construction. In the midst of all that, Representative Lamberth has worked with the governor to try to get the governor to add somewhere between $8 and $10 million from state funds, and include that in his budget. The governor did not do that, but there is still the opportunity that TDOT could find some more money within their budget. TDOT has a very hefty budget, and as we're seeing, when other cities run into cost overruns, sometimes they can't complete some of the projects on the same time frame that TDOT expects them to. So we have the possibility of when this, if we can get this moving, that there might be some money available to us that otherwise would have gone to another city, and they'll just have to wait for the year after that or the year after that. Representative Lamberth, like I said, thinks that could be between $8 and $10 million. And basically, he would just have us and Jimmy Johnston and himself would lobby TDOT for that. There's also the possibility next year in the governor's budget that we could identify some money, because the representatives continue to ask the governor to free up some money that is in the state reserves. $2 billion is what they're asking to free up to go back to the cities, counties, as well as the residents, and they're asking the governor to free some of that money up. The governor's been reluctant to do that, and that's the governor's prerogative. So that will come up the next legislative session. We are no longer pursuing competitive grants on the federal government, but we had conversations with Congressman Rose and his staff about somewhere between $500,000 and $5 million. I understand that's a wide variation. What we're looking for is community appropriation, is that the correct word? What we used to call earmarks, but Congress doesn't call them earmarks anymore because it came up with such a negative connotation. So we had asked about the possibility of being on the list of Congressman Rose's earmarks. We had commitments from Senator Hagerty and from Senator Blackburn to help that process when it got into the Senate, but we didn't make the list this year from Congressman Rose because we weren't sure that we could be moving dirt within a year after this budget would take place, which would be October 2024. So we couldn't commit to that. So having conversations with him and his chief of staff, we should be close to the top of their list a year from now when they make their list and submit it to the House Budget Committee, and somewhere between $500,000 and $5 million. I wish I could give you something firmer, but the longer we go and the more conversations we have, the more likelihood I think it is.
Questions?
So if you want me to give you the highlights, probably $3 million from the county, $2 million from TDOT, possibly another $2 million from TDOT, possibly another $10 million from TDOT. From the federal government, somewhere between $500,000 and $5 million, but that wouldn't be till next year. The key to all of that is that we've got to move on the acquisition of property and be ready for construction, really, at least by October 2024.
Alderman Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That all sounds great. Mm-hmm. It sounds like we've almost shaved off the project in half if we can get commitments from the feds, the state, the county, TDOT, potential money from the governor. But until we have a check in hand, I can't see us going forward with a $28 million project with us not knowing where the funding is going to come from. Again, Mayor, thank you and Sarah for diligently working on this and trying to scrape together every penny we can. But for right now, and Chairman, that's certainly your call, but I can't see us moving forward on this project until we can get at least half this funding committed. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
So keep in mind that we're talking about three different processes. The design is almost finished, then the acquisition that Sarah mentioned right there, and then the construction. Going forward with the design isn't the $29 million. Going forward with the design is a separate pot of money.
Right. But I do agree. I think we're on pause right now until, well, I don't think we should move forward buying any land right now. Do you?
Well, Mrs. Locke, we had a discussion earlier, and there is available at the state about $55,000 that we could be reimbursed for. But we need to do something. What do we need to do to recoup that $55,000 that we've already spent?
So essentially, we need to submit for reimbursements, and the way that TDOT has those laid out there, they have the pots of money for each phase appropriated based on the original contract. So they had so much appropriated for environmental, so much appropriated for design, so on and so forth. And so we're in right-of-way now, but we have had to do some additional tasks for environmental. We had a reevaluation. We also had to do some additional tasks for design. And so in order to get reimbursed for those invoices, we've already paid for that work. We need to have an amendment to our contract with a consultant, which I have put off while we were on pause, to be able to seek reimbursement from TDOT, because as of now, they're denying those reimbursement requests.
So would that, what you're suggesting, the motion would not mean that we would start purchasing right away?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is the motion that I asked staff to prepare and listen to it and see if you're okay with it. The motion would be to move to progress forward to the satisfaction of the state for the purpose of project reimbursement thus far. This is money that we've already spent and that the state has agreed to reimburse us up to 50%. This is not for property acquisition. This is just the early phase to get the project in the proper position, so if we do get grant money, we're ready to rock and roll.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. And just for reference, in the local programs process, in order to have an active project and to keep it from kind of a black mark with TDOT, we do have to have reimbursement requests quarterly. Just for reference, we do have to maintain some level of progress in order to keep it an active project.
Comments? Okay with that motion?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing on this. I guess we do this. Is that right? I guess it is. I don't want to argue with anybody what my determination is, but for $29 million, what is our budget this year, Mayor? What's our budget?
I mean, neighborhood 60 to 62, it's about 60,
Okay,
62.
that's almost a third. It's almost, that one project is almost a third of our city's budget. And I cannot, in all good conscience, spend a third of my budget, or the city's budget, not my budget, the city's budget, on one project when we have projects like the Walton, which you all are going to hear this again today, the Walton Ferry Road, New Shackle, that whole intersection right there that is the mainstay of Hendersonville, for years has not been done yet. And we haven't spent any money towards, well, we have spent some money because we have right-of-way acquisition. Now, on your motion to get the money back, what we've done to keep in the good graces of TDOT, I'm in favor of that. But we're not voting on it tonight, but I would just say that I'm not saying that this is one of those a dream that we all have in Hendersonville, that we wish we could get this Exit 8 thing solved. Yeah, I wish that every night, that we could solve that. We could just say, poof, here it is, it's solved. but it's not gonna be that. And I don't know what to really, at this juncture, I don't know what there is realistically, not the pie in the sky dream that we wish we had $30 million we could put in there. But realistically speaking, with our budget within the city of Hendersonville, I don't know how that's gonna get done. I really don't. We're gonna have to do, there's gonna have to be some really, and we kinda laugh now when we think about this, but some really creative financing. And I'm not sure that my education level goes that far with creative financing, because that's gonna be phenomenal. I wish Gary Forsyth was back on the board, because he was always good at that back in the day when I served with him on the board. He came up with some creative financing, but I'll support your motion, Mr. Chairman, because we do need to keep in the good graces of TDOT, because we really do have a really good relationship with them, and I want to continue that. But as far as the whole Exit 8 debacle of what we have, I don't know what we're going to do, but $30 million is quite a bit of money. And that's all. But thank you. I'll support your motion.
Thank you, Alderman Skidmore. We all share your comments. It is a lot of money. In the budget workshop a little later, I want to explore our debt, and I think that my analysis is it's pretty surprising how low our debt is, and how low our debt's going to be in 2 years. So that's something that I think has helped me to understand that at this juncture we need to move forward. So again, I'll make the motion. I make a motion to progress forward to the satisfaction of the state for Exit 8 for the purposes of project reimbursement thus far, and I so move.
And I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, can I mention something after you vote?
Yes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Passes unanimous. The meeting's off to a good start. Mayor, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Mark Skidmore said. I don't think any of us would have agreed 14 years ago, maybe 16 years ago, to the way this whole thing came about. And that was that the extension of Saundersville Road, Saundersville Road didn't exist 15, 16 years ago. And the agreement the city made was bring traffic from Indian Lake down a new Saundersville Road to an intersection that became Winston Hills Parkway to go over the railroad tracks. And CSX didn't really like it, and TDOT didn't really like it, but the city back then agreed that the at-grade crossing would be closed. And essentially nothing happened on that for, really about 7 or 8 years. And so TDOT has gradually put more and more pressure on us, reminding us that we committed to closing that at-grade crossing in exchange for putting more traffic near the railroad tracks. And if I could back it up today, I absolutely would, and think of other ways to do this. But TDOT expects us to do it. CSX expects us to do it. TDOT gave us some money to do it. And so when TDOT called about 2.5 years ago for us to come down and meet with him about this, I was sure that it was going to put me in a corner and they're going to wag some fingers at me. Instead, they said, we want to support you on seeking some federal grants, and that was the best that they could really offer at that time. That was back when federal grants for this project were about public safety. That's not the case anymore. But we're really in a bind, and we don't really have many options. I would not have made this deal if I were mayor back then. I don't think any of us really anticipated where this was headed, and most of us weren't here, of course. So I appreciate you all passing that.
But, Mayor, to echo what you said, I've seen 2 letters from previous mayors committing this project.
Yep.
So, all right, so we have moved a little forward. Okay, any other discussions on that? If not, Ms. Locke, please move forward.
All right. So we move on to signal synchronization phase 1. This project was initiated with an executed contract with TDOT December of 2006. The original estimate for this project was roughly $1.5 million. The current estimate or current cost is roughly $2.5 million. We do have a minimal cost overrun of $3,300. And I am the project lead for this as well. We are currently in construction. This is a city-managed project, but it is federally funded, so it runs through local programs. The estimated, well, the bid letting date was June 2022. The groundbreaking was March of 2023. The amount of time there was related to the material lead times for this project, which was expected. The estimated completion date is December 2023, and the contractor actually believes that they will be wrapping that up at least a month early. So that's good news. And we have no action needed, but I'm available for any questions, of course.
Questions? Is this 100% federally funded?
The original portion was 100% federally funded. The remainder, the increase, is funded at 80/20.
So what is the city's portion of this project?
Roughly $200,000, I guess,
Okay.
roughly.
Subject to check. That's what you always
Yes.
say, subject.
Roughly.
Okay. And there are no delays that you're aware of right now on
No.
phase one?
That's right.
And remind the public again, it's Main Street,
New Shackle,
New Shackle, and Indian Lake?
that's right.
Those three heavily traveled avenues,
That's right. Yes.
corridors, whatever you call them. Okay?
Sorry. It's, the project will provide communication and new controllers along Main Street, Indian Lake Boulevard, and New Shackle Island.
Okay.
Approximately 200,000.
Okay. And it's moving ahead of schedule
It
and
is.
on budget.
Yeah.
So that's music to my ears. Okay, no questions on phase one. Let's go to phase two. And this is when we really see productivity, right?
Yes, yeah, we will see the most benefit when this project is in construction. The initiation date for this project was January of 2020. The original estimate was roughly 2.2 million. We have not seen a revised estimate, so it's holding at 2.2 million now. So there are no cost overruns. I am the project lead. Current status, we are in NEPA, which is the environmental phase. We are nearing the end of that phase, so I believe we'll be getting notice to proceed within the coming months. We will get notice to proceed to design for this project. There is no right-of-way that we will need to acquire. The jurisdiction of this project, it is city-managed, but it is federally funded at 100%. And estimated bid letting date for this is approximately fourth quarter of this year. Estimated groundbreaking would be second quarter of 2024. Estimated completion timeline would be second quarter of 2025.
Now, Ms. Locke, we can beat those dates. Can't
I'm
we
going to
beat those
try.
dates?
We're going to try.
What's holding up the bid letting?
So when we put a project out to bid, TDOT has a minimum timeline, of course, for the project to be to bid, and then we receive those, and then there's an evaluation that has to be done to compare to the project estimate. And then if we agree internally to the bid, we have to submit that to TDOT for review and approval. They have to provide bid concurrence. And then we can award the bid and work through that process. Honestly, it just takes time. Once we submit it to TDOT, usually that process is anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks minimum for their review.
So let's change the estimated bid letting to third quarter. Let's shoot for third quarter.
Okay.
Any thoughts, comments, questions on the phase two of synchronization?
just want to get the thing done.
I agree, I agree. Alderman Peterson?
What about pushing the bid letting to second quarter and get it on this year's books and not next year's? Is that a possibility? By June 30th?
No, that's very unlikely. We'd have to complete design, and we haven't progressed to that
Okay.
point yet, unfortunately.
If we're going to speed it up, I thought let's just
I
write
like,
it off
Yeah.
as quickly as possible.
I like the way you
Right.
think, you know. But,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
but we've got at least we're shooting for third quarter for the bid, to try to do the bid. Okay, no questions on that. Next, thank you, Ms. Long.
I'm sorry, one more, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
What's the city's portion on Phase 2?
0.
0.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's the best project we have.
Now, let me ask you, will the operation of this project be based upon segment completion or lock key, when all of them are done? In other words, if Main Street is first, if they're concentrated, will that be turned up before, let's say, New Shackle and Indian Lake?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, because as they install detection, I mean, that alone is going to be a really noticeable difference. And then they'll install the new timing plans, so we will see segmented impacts.
So do we have discretion on which leg starts first? Or does the contractor say, we need to do this, this, and this?
They will typically provide a proposed schedule according to whatever various factors, but we have input into that.
So I'd like to have a discussion on the committee. I would like to look at beginning New Shackle Island first because of Costco, because of the opening of Costco. And I think that having early light synchronization on New Shackle would help with the expected traffic increase on New Shackle. Thoughts?
That is a thought. I like it, but we get beat up all the time about Main Street. I mean, this. Oh, sorry. Last weekend alone, I got, several text messages and nice phone calls. And saying if you worked on this sooner, it would have helped with all the traffic that was in town. Basically, that's what was saying. But I do like that because people are apprehensive that live in that area about what traffic is going to bring to those homes over there. But I think I could support that.
So maybe Alderman Skidmore, do you want to say something on that?
My only comment would be that
Yeah, that's true.
all right, what is the completion date for Costco? Do we know right now?
Yes.
I believe they're trying to open in late October, early November. Is that correct?
I heard November 1 is what they're shooting for. Yes.
Of this year, correct?
Yes.
Well, I'm trying to, I don't really, and just looking at the history of our traffic that I'm certainly no traffic engineer, but I've lived here for a long time. And I'm not sure that going to use or do the red lights for New Shackle is going to make that much difference. Where it is going to where I believe is going to be the effect is the interstate or Vietnam Vets and Glenbrook and all that area in there. I don't think it's gonna be coming from this part of the city. Now, we're gonna be driving down, of course, I will be too, but I think a lot of that is gonna be coming off the interstate. I do believe that. There may be a traffic study that's already been there that tells us that it is or not. I don't know. I leave that to the Planning Commission and to Public Works to tell me. But I do think Main Street, with you, I agree with you, because I get calls all the time on Main Street. Like, let me give you a good example. Tonight, for example, I was coming here to this meeting. It took me 20 minutes from Main Street tonight, and it's 4th, and I left at my house at 10 minutes after 4. And it took me almost 25 minutes just to get through Main Street because there was traffic. There wasn't any wrecks. It was just, people. That has been a constant sore for the city of Hendersonville for as long as I can remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just telling you that I think that really is the area that it needs to be. So I agree with my colleague. She's exactly right. I think we need to focus in on that because think about this for a minute and be really logical or just realistically about it. When that red light stops, it backs up everybody coming home from work or to school or just trying to get to this side of town. It backs up everybody. Whereas the other red lights, they don't have near as much as the traffic because that's the heart and soul of Hendersonville. Think about it. You have Walton Ferry moving. Excuse me. You have Main Street moving. You have New Shackle moving. And all those all the neighborhoods are getting on that main drag right there. And so it backs it up. And that's one of the reasons why. It's just the way our city was built. So I would try to work there more than I would the rest of the red lights. I mean, that's just my observation. And I'm sorry for speaking so long. I promise I'll try to limit. But these are serious projects. And I'm happy that we are really addressing them because they're very important, not only to me, but for everybody in Hendersonville. Because everybody wants to get home. They've worked 9 to 5 jobs. They want to get home to their families. But that's just my suggestion. Thank you, Chairman. I apologize for talking for so long.
Anybody else like to weigh in on that? Alderman Dixon, did you have something else?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
No, it's.
Okay, I guess we'll just leave it to the staff then to make the right decision on that,
Okay.
on how to progress. Oh, yes, Vice Mayor Waters, you have a comment?
Does this affect Main Street and Sonnersville Road too, going towards,
Gallatin?
would that affect that area? It would? I'm bringing it up because unfortunately we was over there today. It took us over 15 minutes to get from Public, come up on Main Street and come this way. They're backed up, turn left on Sonnersville.
Oh, yeah.
All the way back up to the Cherokee.
Yeah,
It is pathetic.
yeah.
I have to agree with my colleagues about that. Thank you.
All right, I think that was a good amen to that faulty idea, maybe.
No.
Okay, Mayor, did you want to say something, or anything on that? Okay, all right, Ms. Locke,
All right.
proceed.
So we have a Drakes Creek Stop 30 intersection. The contract was signed for this project in July of 2014. The original estimate was $2.7 million. The current estimate is just over $7 million. There are no cost overruns to date. Project lead staff, I'm managing this project. Current status, we are in right-of-way. We are in the process of acquiring property to then finalize the design plans for construction documents and and hopefully move forward to construction. Our jurisdiction of the project is city, so this is a city-managed project, federally funded at 80-20 split. So city's responsibility is 20%. Estimated bid letting would be second quarter of 2024. Estimated groundbreaking would be fourth quarter of 2024. Estimated completion would be fourth quarter of 2026. And there is no action needed at this time.
Questions? Now, again, remind the board and new aldermen that one of the important reasons for this was for public safety.
Yes.
That this road frequently floods, preventing fire and police from servicing one of the fastest growing areas. So that was why this was such an urgent item.
Yes.
Public safety, and with the building of 7 and 7 serving Indian Lake, the need doesn't go away. that
Absolutely.
need. Are there any trouble with right-of-way acquisitions?
There's currently one issue that I think we're close to finding some resolution on, and that's related to the Boone Cemetery. There's some old deeds from the 1800s, and then really nothing after that. There's been no taxes collected on that property, so our right-of-way appraisers have been working with TDOT right-of-way staff to come to a resolution on that. I do have a progress update meeting later this week on the right-of-way process, so I'll know a little more at that time.
Good. Okay. Next item.
I had,
I'm sorry.
thank you,
Alderman
Mr. Chairman. Ms. Locke, what is the city's portion of the 20%?
That would be roughly 1.4 million.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And how is that being funded?
It's a federal grant. I believe it's Surface Transportation Block Grant for
Our
this project.
portion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, we will be discussing that in just a little bit at Workshop 3. But primarily stormwater.
Because there's a creek there.
That's right.
Yeah, if it wasn't a flooding, we wouldn't be maybe looking at that. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you. Sanders Ferry, Greenway.
All right. This contract was signed March of 2012. Original estimate was roughly $1.5 million. The current project cost is $5.8 million, roughly. We do have minimal cost overruns in the amount of $9,700. That was a change order, but it actually is anticipated that we may not see a cost overrun by the time it's all said and done. I am also leading this project. We are currently in construction. This is a city-managed project, federally funded through various sources, but it is an 80-20 split. This is one we received a significant additional funding through the GNRC for when we got construction bids. The bid letting date was April of 2022. The groundbreaking was in October of 2022. The estimated completion date will be in September of 2023, so this year. And at this time, there is no action needed.
Questions? I've got some.
All right.
I heard from a property owner that they're not going to build over the water, that has been changed, the boardwalk over the inlet. Is that correct?
No, sir, no. We are still building the boardwalks. They'll begin constructing those abutments this month, actually.
And is there any way, I've asked this before, but I'll ask again since we have planning in here, is there any way at the end near La Jolla Restaurant, that big rock wall, is there any way we can put any greenery, anything to look better? That looks pretty stark there, that all those big boulders right there at the entrance of the Greenway.
So I did have some preliminary discussions with a designer on that, and there's no problem as far as, core approval for planting more greenery. They wanted us to plant more trees since we had to do so much clearing for the project. I think there were some concerns about what would thrive in that area. That's certainly not my area of expertise, so I could certainly coordinate with planning on that to see what we could do to improve the aesthetic there.
Mayor?
I sent an email about this, wanted to give you an update a little bit. We control the property through lease with the boardwalk to where it ends right at Lincoya. We also we control the property over by the gazebo, which is close to Gallatin Road. So we've got a stretch of land that is really just shoreline for the first, probably 80 yards on Sanders Ferry Road. And so working with Timothy Witten in planning, we're going to ask the Corps of Engineers if we could control that stretch because it is overgrown with vegetation. Corps of Engineers doesn't have a hard time with that because they see that as part of really the shoreline and part of what's supposed to happen there with the water. But we're looking at getting control of that and improving the look of it a little bit.
Good. And I think I can announce there is an Eagle Scout project for the Greenway that an Eagle Scout is going to plant a tree and put a plaque up on that Greenway for every fallen police officer that we've had. And I think that's a good touch. That'll be kind of a good remembrance as we walk that.
That'd be
Okay.
nice.
Sarah, I see your project lead. I mean, I believe in leadership, but you're project lead on all of these. So all of you put her speed dial number on your phones, I guess. But
Might see some changes over the next year.
good. I hope so. All right, next project, fire
Chairman
station.
again.
Oh, sorry.
I just, if we could include the city's portion on all of these.
Good idea.
Just so I can keep track. Sarah, I think this is a 20% city portion, is that correct?
That is correct.
And what is the total of that for the Greenway?
Roughly 1.4 million.
Thank you.
So
Yes, sir.
could you add that to this slide and then maybe make copies for all of BOMA? I think this is an excellent analysis
Sure.
of this. So if you could just put in the city's portion of each of the costs. Good idea, Alderman Peterson.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get that added.
Fire Station 7.
All right. This project was initiated in March of 2021. Original estimate was $2.6 million. The current cost is roughly $5.5 million. We currently have no cost overruns. Stephen Winson-Reed, who is our Assistant Public Works Director, City Engineer, is here with us this evening, and he is the lead staff on this project. We are currently in construction. This is a city-managed and city-funded project. This was bid in April of 2022, groundbreaking in August of 2022, and our estimated completion will be the third quarter of 2023. And we have no action needed at this time. And Stephen is available for any questions you may have.
Yeah, I have a couple questions for him. Anybody else have any questions?
Good evening.
Yeah, hi, Stephen. Thank you for being here. So no cost overruns. Do we project any cost overruns?
At this time, we don't. I haven't seen anything to suggest we do.
I understand that there was an issue with the electrical conduit coming into the fire station. Has that been resolved, and is the cost going to be within budget?
So we were having issues with the boring costs because we had a stream that we had to go underneath, or at least that was the original intent. After working with CEMC, we came up with a solution that's going to encapsulate the conduits over the top of the stream, so we don't have to bore. It can be an open trench outside of the limits of the culvert crossing, and then it'll be encased in concrete over the top of it. That's going to be a significant cost savings. The boring costs were pretty high. So as it stands now, I haven't seen a finalized cost estimate, but it seems like it's going to be closer to what was budgeted at the time. So
Have we had to spend any of our contingency money?
we're within our contingencies now as it stands. with the project.
Okay, so I think the contingency, what did we put? 10% of the cost of the project into contingency? Mr. Eckenroth, that's a finance question, I guess.
Yeah, so there's some contingencies within the contract itself, and then our budget document also has a contingency account. So I think correct me if I'm wrong, but the contingencies so far are within the contract that we have. So we haven't dipped into the budget contingency
Okay,
account.
that was
We're
my
within
question.
the contract, is that correct?
That was my question. Good. Have we taken any steps during construction to lower the cost?
No.
Okay. Had to ask the question. And it's still estimated for the ribbon cutting in the third quarter of this year, correct?
Correct, yes.
Does that mean it'll be serviceable?
The substantial completion date is third quarter, which means I think occupancy at the time. So yes, that's the anticipation is thereabouts or shortly thereafter, we'd be able to occupy.
And I'm sure the staff will, and the mayor will work on a ribbon cutting for that occasion. So that.
Wait until sometime deeper in fall, just make sure everybody's done.
Okay, very good. All right, any questions for Stephen? Thank you for your work. This is an important project. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Alderman Skidmore's favorite project. This is the Walton Ferry Old Shackle Realignment Project.
Shame on you. I'm getting ready to come out of my seat.
All right. The contract was signed on this project in December of 2004. The original estimate was roughly $4.9 million. The current estimate is just over $16 million. There are currently no cost overruns. I am currently managing this project. The current status, we are in right-of-way property acquisition. This is a state-managed project. It is funded through federal funding, but the state is managing this one. They anticipate letting this project fourth quarter of 2023. They believe they are on track for that. The estimated groundbreaking would be second quarter of 2024. And the estimated completion would be the second quarter of 2026. And there are currently no actions needed on this project.
So that's going to change the red light configuration of that intersection, isn't it?
Yes.
So that will be after phase 2 of light synchronization.
Potentially.
Will we be upgrading the traffic signals there now that we will not need once this project is completed?
No. We
Okay.
actually asked them to remove this intersection from that project in anticipation of the construction of this project.
Very good. And we didn't even rehearse that, did we?
No.
Okay. Any questions for this project? Okay. Yeah, the city's portion,
City's portion's roughly 3.2 million, which we have paid to TDOT already. It is anticipated, it's possible that once it goes to bid, there would be an increased construction cost, which we would be responsible for 20% of that. But we have already paid our portion through construction for the current estimate.
excellent. All right, next item is pickleball, and I continue to get requests, when are we going to start pickleball? So
Yeah, this is a fun one.
give us some good news.
Okay, so we this project, I was speaking with Mr. Gilly. He said it was initiated in February of 2022. Our actual contract for design was signed April of 2023. The original estimate was 1.1 million, which was at an alternate location with parking and some additional features that we were able to remove from the project with an alternate site. So our current estimate is $600,000. There are currently no cost overruns. Myself and Andy Gilly are leading this project. We are currently in design. This is a city-managed and city-funded project. The estimated bid letting date would be first quarter of 2024. The estimated groundbreaking would be second quarter of 2024. And then the estimated completion would be fourth quarter of 2024. And there are currently no actions needed.
Questions?
Remind me again where these are going?
The senior center,
Okay, that's right.
yes,
Thank you.
yeah.
Peterson?
Yes, thank you. I believe I heard there was a organization helping donate toward the courts. Is that correct?
I'm not aware of an organization donating to the courts, but Director Gilly may have more information on that. To verify, I could follow up and let you know.
And the city is paying 600,000, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Alderman Peterson, we have an organization that's helping us out right now, currently where we are, providing nets and tape and some of the equipment they need. But long-term, this project is going to be ours.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, questions? Current status design, what does that mean?
There's some additional survey that's needed, so they'll be collecting that, and then they will design the grade and layout for the courts, as well as the electrical, all the utility connections needed. There's some stormwater improvements that are needed in the area that we're aware of an issue that they're going to be including in that design, as well as an ADA path from the proposed court location to the senior center so they can access the restrooms.
Approximately how far will the courts be from the parking lot? Just a ballpark footage?
70 feet,
70 feet?
approximately.
Okay, all right, that's not bad. And remind me again, how many courts are we talking about?
I want to say we were planning for 8, but they would do 4 for the preliminary construction. Is that right?
Does that include lights? It does include lights for the 4. Let's see. So, Sarah, why is it manpower or woman power that the reason it's taking so long to get these off the ground? I mean, we're not even going to be ready to do the bid until next year.
I might be a little conservative in those, and I'm hoping I am. I'm waiting on a proposed timeline from the consultant. It may move faster than that, but it's just allowing enough time for them to collect the survey and actually complete the design, and then just that timeline to put it out to bid.
Yeah. And Mr. Gilly, if you would come, I don't want us to have the same problems with these as we're having with the tennis courts. So I want to make sure that the quality and the design of these pickleball courts will last us a long after I'm gone.
Me too.
So can you assure that the quality is going to be good, and that 5 years from now, we're not going to need to come back and resurface these courts?
No, I cannot. I would say you're going to be, if you're doing it right, you're going to need to resurface them every 3 years probably, just like we do tennis courts. The tennis courts, the major problem that you're talking about with the back 4 tennis courts,
Yeah.
I don't expect that kind of cracking problem to occur. But we've not tested the soil over there at the senior center. You know, that property's been there for a long time. There's no telling what's buried under there. Used to be the old high school building a long time ago. So I would not guarantee anything until I've seen any kind of soil samples or anything. Also, you're building them with asphalt and not concrete, so asphalt is going to crack. There's no doubt in my mind. A lot of that could be determined by whether we put permanent nets or utilize temporary nets. If you put permanent nets in the asphalt, you're gonna start cracking. But you will have to maintain them, just like we've been on a good schedule with tennis courts. Every 3 years, one bank of 4 has gotten resurfaced. We've done that the last 4 years, about 30,000 a year. So,
Well, I guess the more structural cracks is what I'm talking about. I'm
Right,
not talking about just the playing surface.
Yeah,
but
I
the
would hope,
foundation.
I would hope with this not being in a floodplain, it's kind of up on a hill, we would not see some of the major cracks like we do at Memorial Park where it's dead in the middle of a floodplain. But I would not stand here and guarantee you that until I've seen a whole lot more work done.
So what was the determining factor in going asphalt instead of concrete? Was cost? And that may be a finance question, but.
No, it's not cost. It's that's what the people like to play on. They don't like playing on concrete. And we've had several folks come in here, meet with the mayor's office and our staff, and when we started looking at different types of surfaces to put down, that was what was basically
Okay.
requested by residents.
And you know, I'm not an expert on pickleball. I'm way out of my court on this. But okay. Anything else on that, Mr. Kelly?
Just ready to get started.
Yeah, I am
and I
too.
will say Sarah is I hope she's being conservative too, but I appreciate her being conservative because I don't want the information getting out there and then somebody coming back, why isn't it done yet? You know.
Yeah.
But I know that we're going to get them done as quick as we can.
And there's room up there to add more if we need to,
I
correct?
hope so. Yes, sir. I think that's a plan there. We'll have to the public will dictate that demand, you know. At some point, that's why we're building them in the first place.
Now Gallatin has how many?
Gallatin has 4, maybe more.
And are
They built some new ones and then they resurfaced some old surfaces as well to pickleball courts. So.
Yeah. Okay, very good, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Okay. Moving right along, the ball's in your court, rugby.
All right. Initiation date for this project was August of 2020. The original estimate was $150,000. The current estimate and what we have budgeted is $509,000. Currently, no cost overruns. Project lead on this is also Stephen Winsenreed. Current status, we are letting for construction now. So this is a city-managed, city-funded project. We let in second quarter of 2023. We estimate groundbreaking would happen in the second quarter of 2023. And we estimate completion in the fourth quarter of 2023. And there are no actions needed at this time.
This is the bathrooms, correct?
That's correct.
And also the entrance
That's correct.
to the entrance will be, how long will the entrance, is it concrete or asphalt entrance to the park?
Concrete.
Concrete?
Yeah.
You know how long the apron will be?
The apron will extend back about halfway between the current edge of asphalt and the gate, if you're familiar with that entrance. So 35 to 40 feet from the edge of pavement.
Down to the entrance?
Yeah, into the entrance. Yeah,
Okay. And that's included in this projection?
correct.
Okay. And have we haven't done a bid yet, have we? Or is the bid open now?
The bid opening will be May 11th, so we're
Okay.
10 days out from that.
Okay. Good. Any questions?
I do.
Okay. Alderman Peterson?
Does that include the lights, or is that separate?
The lighting would be a separate project.
Okay. And what is the city portion on the entrance and restrooms for rugby?
The project as a total, it would be the 509,000.
509?
Yes.
Thank you.
Just in comparison, how much did we pay for the facility at Volunteer Park, Andy? Yeah. Just as a comparison, because I want to highlight how hard the staff has worked to try to cut the cost on this. Do you recall what that Volunteer Park?
Sure, it was,
concession-
the total project was close to $1 million for the concession stand at Volunteer Park. Of that, approximately 100,000 was for a force main to be run, and another 150 to 180 that we had to build the bridge to go at the back of that park to connect two pieces of land due to grant requirement. So I would say building alone, 700,000
And this project's 500,000.
as of today. Yes, sir. I feel a lot better about this one than I love the volunteer park concession stand. It's beautiful, but I did not write that grant.
Yeah. And this is not covered under a grant.
No, sir.
The
And
lights are, but not the bathrooms.
that's correct. And the lights, we're waiting on the state to approve actual design. There's some ADA things we have to do with the LPRF grant, but that's not on your agenda, but there's an update. As soon as we get the design, we'll be ready to go to bid on that, hopefully this summer. And Stephen has done an outstanding job with this rugby restroom project.
Good.
He would not say that, but I will.
Good. Good to hear. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you.
And Sarah's done a great job on the other 42 projects.
Yeah.
That you've
Yeah,
heard
this
about.
this is the Sarah show, I think, you know.
No,
But we're trying to get her help, aren't we, Jesse? We're trying to get her some help.
I'd also like to, just based off that as well, Stephen has done an amazing job on Fire Hall 7 as well. There is, the amount of coordination needed on both of those projects has been very extensive, and he really has done a great job, and really is the main reason they're moving forward the way that they are. So, thank you.
Good. Glad to have you from California.
Me too.
Stop 30.
All right. We'll say the initiation date on this project is November 2022. That's when we signed the contract for some preliminary design for widening on this. The original estimate and current estimate are the same because that was the purpose of this part of the project. So they were showing a $3.1 million estimate for the widening of Stop 30, and that would include widening 8 feet, which would provide 2 11-foot lanes and a 2-foot shoulder, which we would actually plan to stripe at 10-foot drive lanes with a 3-foot shoulder, just to help control speeds as well. Part of the expense with that, just since no one's familiar with this yet, there were 2 vertical curves that did not meet the design speed that we would want for that roadway, and so they would require some alignment changes in order to widen the roadway safely. So currently, this is, this is very preliminary, so there are no overruns. Currently, I would be lead staff on this. That's subject to change. Current status is preliminary conceptual design at this stage. This is a city-managed and a city-funded project at this point. There are no grant funds associated with this. The estimated bid letting, should it be funded, could potentially be third quarter of 2024. Estimated groundbreaking could potentially be fourth quarter of 2024. And estimated completion would be fourth quarter of 2025. At this time, it's no action needed, but this is open for discussion, questions.
Question? Alderman Peterson?
I'm sorry, I have so many questions.
No, that's
Again,
good.
you're doing an incredible job. There's 2 Drakes Creek, or there's 2 Stop 30 projects, and I'm kind of confused. I think the first one, is that the new bridge and the Drakes Creek Stop 30 intersection?
That's right.
Is a new bridge, okay. Well, what is Stop 30 widening?
It would be to widen Stop 30 from New Shackle to Drakes Creek Road,
Okay.
or really to the termini of the other project.
It certainly needs to be widened. Would that include a sidewalk?
That was not part of this scope, no.
Okay, so just widening the road as it is?
Yes.
Okay, and what is the city portion on that?
Currently, that would be 100% of that $3 million.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a couple questions, of course, and Vice Mayor Waters may have some questions as well, but we have submitted this project for GNRC funding, correct? Stop 30?
I would have to confirm whether Stop 30 was submitted. I know Sanders Ferry was, a few years ago. I'm not sure whether Stop 30 has been submitted to them or not. I'd have to verify that.
Yeah, would you get back with me on that? It seemed like I remember your predecessor telling us that all of Stop 30 was submitted for GNRC funding.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So GNRC funding might be difficult on this because we're not actually increasing the capacity. And that's a lot of what GNRC is looking for.
Okay.
But it's worth asking.
Okay. So what's the width of the road now?
18 foot.
Does that meet, is it federal standards? Or what's the standard that engineers use for a road carrying this much traffic? What is the minimum requirement?
Typically, we would expect to see 10 or 11 foot lanes with a 2 or 3 foot shoulder if it were designed and constructed today.
So it's not in compliance with the current standards.
Not current, but the way roadway and liability associated with that roadway design goes is it really is dependent on what the design standards were at the time it was designed and constructed, which I don't have that information readily available when that took place, but it may be compliant with design standards at that time.
So each lane is how wide approximately?
9 feet.
9 feet. Chief, can your trucks run on 9 feet of road? Two-way traffic? So there's a public safety component as well. Because Station 7 will be serving some of this area, I would think, Stop 30. Lawson Point and...
Lawson Point and the other subdivision has all the ducks.
well, that's Drake's Point, but that's on Old Drake's Creek. This is Stop 30. I think Lawson and, yeah, there are several.
Fountain Brook is the last subdivision that we serves out that way.
So Stop 30, and I'm just, for the record, Stop 30 does not meet current standards for the width of a road, and at the present time, it would be hard for a fire apparatus to make a call on that road. So, and there's no shoulder, so people can't pull off the road for the fire engine to get by. So,
Right.
so okay. So I'm trying to lay the case. Can you tell? Mark? I've learned from you. I've learned from you.
You're doing a good job too, brother.
Okay. Yes, Vice Mayor, yeah. Do we need to have him speak to a mic?
Just repeat his question or statement.
Okay, okay, go ahead.
Okay, Stop 30. Run that by me again. It's 3 lanes, it's gonna become 3 lanes? Did I misunderstand?
This design was a short-term solution, conceptual design, and it was for 2 11-foot lanes with 2 foot shoulders.
They're 6 foot now, right?
They're 9 feet. Yes.
We're gonna make it 2 feet wider.
Yes. With shoulders. So it'll be a total widening of 8 feet. That is from where the Drakes Creek Stop 30 project stops. We'll pick up there, and it will extend through to New Shackle. Drakes Creek Stop 30 project. When they reconstruct that bridge, they're also adding a turn lane, so there'll be some widening that tapers back, and so what it will tie into that project. Mm-hmm.
Does this project have any relationship with the other Stop 30 that we met? What was the name of that?
Yeah, I was going to ask that question.
Ask it, what's the name of it?
Well, it was the land use plan and the transportation plan that planning is working on. So is there coordination between planning and public works on this?
Yes, so we asked the consultant that's doing the land use plan, their roadway design team, to evaluate for a short-term solution, which is this, and then a long-term conceptual plan that would support and tie into the land use plan that planning is working on. So they are coordinating that overall plan.
So you're saying that this project is completed in 25?
If it's funded, it's not currently funded, that's just what it could look like if we funded it next fiscal year 25.
It's all city funded?
It would be right now, yes. We would have to apply for some grants. It's a possibility.
Thank one. Yes, Alderman Peterson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm going to follow up on that. And I was going to ask the mayor, but he disappeared. Can I get some clarification on GNRC's definition of capacity?
So what he means by that is he probably means adding turn lanes, adding a center turn lane, a shared turn lane, things like that provide additional capacity for growth. So more vehicles can move through quicker if we have turn lanes and things like that. And I think that's probably what he was referencing.
That entire left side of Stop 30 is undeveloped. So I could see us working with GNRC and having them fund 80% of this project because it will be developed eventually. And, I don't know what the time frame of that would be, but I would like to see GNRC and TDOT kick in some money on this project and not just the city fund a new road. And I know it's needed, but there will be capacity. Every year, I don't know, do we need a traffic study?
That's part of this preliminary conceptual design. That's what they've been evaluating, and then is also part of the land use plan that planning is working on.
Okay.
That coordination, that they are evaluating that.
Yeah. Good idea for everyone to work together on this one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Goodwin?
I just have a question. I need some clarification.
Sure.
So you're saying if this gets funded, we could do that, but planning is working on a plan for this area. Is there a chance that you're going to turn around and do it differently after this has been done?
I think that and Timothy can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the plan that they're working on would be finalized and approved, adopted, whatever that process is, prior to even this being approved and funded. So I think we would have a pretty good idea of what that timeline would look like and what the overall plan for the area will be.
Okay.
Timothy, you have anything you want to add?
Yeah,
Come up to the mic, please.
we anticipate the future land use and transportation plan for Stop 30 to be through with that process certainly by the end of the summer, probably more like midsummer. So that plan will be finalized by then.
And part of that plan is a transportation plan for Stop 30.
Yes, they'll be looking at, depending on the outcome of public meetings, they'll be looking at probably a couple of different options for upgrading Stop 30 to account for all future projected land uses. And also, like Sarah was saying, making sure that this widening plan is accommodated within the context of that future upgrading of Stop 30.
But you don't expect that this estimate is going to be sufficient when that
No,
land is developed?
No, sir.
And if and when that land is developed, will developers contribute to the cost of the upgrade of the road?
That's to be determined. That there is a scenario where, yes, they would be on the hook for contributing to that. But that's to be determined.
I understand. Okay. Mr. Waters?
I guess, Ken, one, the plan that we were talking about, that we had the other week, are they aware of this project too?
Yes, sir. It's the same engineer that's working on the widening plan is also the consultant for the future land use and transportation plan. So it's the same
They know about
folks. Yes, sir. Same engineer.
I wonder why our constituents here wasn't advised that.
So at the stakeholders meeting, they did, the consultant was here. They also had in attendance one of the engineers that's working on this Stop 30 widening plan.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Locke, I think that's the last, well, no, my goodness, what, this,
The last slide, I have a handout for you. I know it's difficult to see up here. It's difficult to see printed out a little larger. But just for context, this is the 2016 flow chart for locally managed TDOT local programs projects. So there may be some changes since 2016, but this is the last published copy. And each one of those boxes, you know, just depending on what the activity is, can take at least a month, if not months. And it's just
now what's your motivation for sharing this?
I only want to provide context
I
for
understand.
what the process is.
I understand.
That's all.
My goodness, bureaucracy at its best.
It's something to work through.
Okay, anything else?
That's all I have.
Excellent job. Thank you,
Thank
you and
you.
your staff, Stephen, and all the staff, for all the hard work.
Thank you.
And I know the next time we meet, we're going to have a lot of shovels in the ground by then.
I hope so.
Okay, I wanted to just, and we're just about out of time, but we talked about the GNRC. And Sarah, do you know how many GNRC-funded projects that we have moving at this time? And if you don't, that's fine.
Okay. I found this on the web for do you know how many GNRC funded projects that we have?
That happens a lot.
Seriously.
That was funny.
That's funny. Active projects, I believe we have probably 8 right now that are active. We do have a couple that are inactive, which are the Rockland Road and the Indian Lake widening projects. As far as what's contained in the long-range plan, I'm not certain how many are in there. We'd have to look into that.
So I would like for this committee and all of BOMA to do an exercise, because we travel in our wards and we know the roads, along with the staff, that are most traveled and in the need of major improvements. So I would like for us to think about a process of coming up with some long-range plans for projects to be submitted to GNRC. Of course, when GNRC gets it, they grade it, and they'll either move forward on it or they'll reject it. And they have rejected several of ours, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm thinking about, for each ward, each alderman, to provide maybe 2 projects, long-range road projects, not paving, but I mean that you think that the staff should evaluate. And the staff would take those, so if we've got 6 wards, there may be 12 projects. And the staff would take those, and that would begin the process of brainstorming and narrowing down that list, because we probably don't want to submit 12. But at least the alderman would be able to have some input on projects that we would like the staff to evaluate for long-term improvements. So, yeah, you're counting them, aren't you?
I have one, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
My Saunders Ferry Road trumps every road in the city.
There you go.
So
That's one of my lists.
we'll get started on that one first.
Yeah, and I don't want this to be competitive, but I want us to have some input. I want us to have some input. Too late. So we'll flush that, or flash that out with the staff, and maybe come up with a plan. Maybe the staff can come up with a plan to receive input from aldermen on projects in their wards that they believe are deemed appropriate to evaluate for long-term GNRC funding. And maybe with that, we can also provide some clarification on what is the criteria for GNRC funding as well. So maybe that'll be for the next meeting that we have. No, this is a bigger scope than paving. This is like Saunders Ferry Road. This is like Stop 30. This is like so many other roads that, I'm not sure in Ward 3, but I know that there are some, maybe future improvements where, Glenbrook in that area, So, I'll work with the staff, and maybe at the next meeting, they can come forward with a blueprint of how this can move forward. But I'd just like to get the aldermen more involved. I know. That's exactly right, yeah. Okay, any other business to come before the committee at this time?
You've done well, sir.
I want to thank you. I think we've accomplished a lot. Again, thank you, Sarah,
Good job.
staff. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I have this motion by Alderman Goodwin and a second by Alderman Skidmore. All those approved, say aye. Aye.